Howdy. Welcome back to Dion Talk. A lot of us, when we're starting out as new investors, the main problem that we have is getting stuck in what everybody calls analysis paralysis. But has anybody ever broken down what that is? Normally, it's because we think we have to know 100% of something before we take action. And when I was in the Marine Corps, basically the idea is you get a plan to 80% and then you move. Because so many things are going to change that if you're at 100%, you're not going to be ready for when something happens that you weren't expecting. So today I have a friend named Calvin, and I want him to come in here and explain how he's been able to reach financial freedom in about half the time that it took me. And one of the main reasons that I want to bring Calvin on here is because I'm involved in a few mastermind groups. And one of the benefits to getting into some meetings or in person with people who have done what I want to do is you never know what you're going to learn until you're there and somebody says something that you weren't expecting, but it completely changes the way you invest. Calvin, if you could take a few minutes, tell us a little bit about the size of your portfolio and how you got started.
Yeah, Dion, I appreciate you having me on. So like you mentioned, I started about 5.5 years ago and started off house hacking, single family houses, burrs, residential multifamily, all the way to commercial apartment complexes. And we went from 0 to 88 units is what we have today. We do about 15K of passive income a month on those units, as well as some Airbnbs as well. So that's where we're at today. And it took us about 5.5 years to build it up.
That is incredible. And it's kind of the story that a lot of times gets brought up on BiggerPockets, where they talk about the stack. You get a house, you get a small multifamily, you build equity, you learn new creative financing ways, and you move into commercial. And the thing that's always a barrier for me so far is lending. 30-year fixed rate, low interest loans where house hacking can be used, to me is really attractive. It's super simple. I'm the lazy investor, so it works for me. I'm stuck in analysis paralysis where I don't want to move into commercial because of loan reevaluation periods and possibly that year being a time when your net operating income doesn't look good and not being able to refinance. How'd you get past that?
Yeah, I love what you said there, Dion. It's like the analysis paralysis, sometimes it's all about numbers, but I think the analysis paralysis that a lot of people actually face is actually more of their mental mindset of it, right? The limiting beliefs. I know I don't know if you have, but even when I bought my first property, like I had that analysis paralysis of fear, right? Of fear, like what's going to go, what happens if everything goes wrong, right? And even to get over that hump, even from going from residential to commercial, I had that same rationale. Like I was scared, right? And a big thing for me this year of my theme is being uncomfortable, right? Because when you're uncomfortable is when you have the most growth. So my theme this year is being comfortable, being uncomfortable, right? So when, I made that transition from residential to apartment complex commercial deals, like, yeah, I had a lot of fear, right? I had I clenched up, all that stuff. I felt really comfortable doing it. I wanted to back out a couple of times on my first deal just because I was scared, right? But then the same approach I took when I even jumped into my first out of state investing deal, and I lived in California. So that was kind of a necessity, was, where's this fear coming from? Like, what does it actually mean, right? And if we kind of deep down look at the logical piece of it, well, fear, it's a defense mechanism that, we were all taught as when we were all cavemen and cavewomen back in the day when dinosaurs were trying to eat us. It was a defense mechanism to say, hey, watch out, don't get eaten, right? Nowadays, like there is no dinosaurs, thank God, but there is the fear of financial ruin, right? Because what if I mess up and I can't feed my family? What if I mess up and I go homeless, right? But if you look at it logically, right, again, and this is kind of where I was at, well, what's the worst case scenario? What's going to happen here, even if I mess this deal up? Is my fiance still going to love me? Yes. Is my family still going to love me? Yes. Will I be okay financially? Probably, right? Getting over that piece of, all right, well, I think the bigger fear I have is if I don't take action, right, I'm on my deathbed, and this is going to get morbid for a second, but if I'm on my deathbed, I have that regret of what if I never did that, right? I don't want that regret.
Yeah, the fear of regret is powerful too. One of the things I think that makes me a strong investor, and before we started recording this, you mentioned that it's kind of your thing too, is that I'm pretty lazy. And it's really powerful motivation to make work optional when you are that lazy. Not having to work is the greatest peace of mind that I can bring. But I think you nailed it when you said fear stopped you from getting your first, or not stopped you, but was stopping you from getting your first house. And fear is stopping me from getting into commercial. And this is something that I say in a few of my videos, and I've said it in a few interviews, but the first time you do something in real estate, it's terrifying. The second time you do something in real estate, it almost feels like you could teach a class. So it's possible that I'm not investing in commercial loans because I haven't done it. If I did one, I might move all to commercial. The fear of regret is very powerful, but for me, the fear of returning to where I was is just as powerful. When I got out of the Marine Corps, I was homeless for a while. Me and my son, we actually moved into a bus, put it behind my brother's house, stayed there for several months. And to go from that, not knowing where next month's food or next month's any money for anything was going to come from, getting to a point where now I'm trying to share with people that, hey, look, the average person can reach financial independence in 10 years or less, like you did, 5.5 years. And it doesn't take working a really high paying job. And it doesn't take a lot of work. I did this while working full time, while being a single parent. So as you've scaled from 0 properties to 88, how much of that is work that you actually do on a daily basis, or how much of it relies on the team that you put in place?
Oh, it's majority team. I mean, I think as we all go through our investing journey in our life, nothing's really a me, I game, right? This is not golf, right? This real estate sport is football, it's basketball, it's a team sport, right? So I wouldn't be anywhere without my team. You know, I know a lot of your audience is about, the lazy man's journey to financial freedom. Yeah, I'm like that too. Like, I don't want to work for the rest of my life. Like, I want to find a way out. Another reason that I think commercial real estate was a great segue in, because you do all that work. And I remember I did a single family burr in San Antonio, and it took me like 6 months to get all my money out, all this stuff. And it was a lot of work. And I was like, at the end of the day, it worked. I got my money back, and it cash flowed $100. And I was in there doing the math. I was like, man, this is going to take, like, what's my number? Like, oh, this is going to take forever to get there. Right. Which is kind of a reason I was like, what other asset classes are there to get me there faster? And one of my students this last week, and we had a mastermind, best quote of the weekend, he basically said, hey, the only thing that's the difference between people sitting in the chairs and the people talking, or you guys are taking action. And he's like, I'm learning that right now, that I just got to go out and take action. And I love that quote, because it's true, right? It's just taking action to build your team. It's taking action to put offers in, taking action just to get your feet wet and see what happens. And I think you mentioned it earlier, take 80% of there, right, versus 120% of analysis paralysis. Like, hey, I'll take 80% all day. 80% of something done versus 100% of nothing done, right? As we talk about being in the mindset of being the CEO of your life, right? I mean, you are the CEO of your team that you build as well, which means that it's not just about you, it's about them too, right? So, if I work with my brokers, if I work with my property managers, hey, understanding what are their goals, right? In your business, right? How can I help you get there? Hey, I'm looking to buy, XYZ amount of deals this year, right? So, obviously treat me right, because at the end of the day, this is a partnership. This is not just I'm your boss, right? Like, I want us to be mutually beneficial so that I can continue to feed you. I have a network of a lot of investors that I refer you to if, you were delivering, and I could put my name attached to you and feel comfortable with my brand being protected. So there's a lot of, what I love about real estate is there's a lot of synergies like that. I mean, every partnership you have, they're partnerships, right? No one's a boss, no one's an employee. It's all partnerships.
And that's one of the great things about building your team, is finding out what the team member wants. Yeah. As an investor, I want the next deal. I know real estate agents who have never owned an investment property. I have handymen who they talk about it, but they might never own an investment property. What do they want? In order to be more productive for me, my real estate agents, what do you think a real estate agent wants more than anything from their clients?
Transactions, closes.
That's what I would have said forever. Have the conversation with an agent, and it's always referrals. Mm-hmm. As an investor, we're thinking, what's the next deal? What's the next cash flowing asset? The agent is thinking, how do I get the number of people that I work with larger so that the number of deals that I'm going to do as an overall are going to be bigger? So my agents are super excited when I call them and I say, hey, I want to make an offer on this property because we're going to get a deal, because they know I close on pretty much everything that I get an offer accepted on. Only one time in 10 years I didn't close. But when people reach out to me and they say, I live in this area, do you know anybody who can help me? And I know a rock star, a couple of lenders, I know a rock star, a couple of agents, and I give them those referrals. Those agents look for their best deals to bring back to me, because they know that the better they treat me, the more referrals they're going to get. And what does my handyman want? My handyman wants enough work to not have to work his full-time job. So the more people I find in my local area that I can refer that handyman to, that's what they want. So I have them reaching out to me sometimes saying, hey, do you have anything you need done? And it's not because they're looking for work from me. They're making sure I'm happy because I keep sending them other work. I still self-manage. I kind of have a long list of reasons why I do that, but I only have 16 units. If I had 88, more than likely it would be a property manager, especially in the commercial world. One of the things that seems to be attractive to a lot of people is commercial seems to be more hands-off across the board. Like it's usually professionally managed. You almost always have property management. Whereas with single family, if you are just starting out investing and you only have that one unit, you're going to pay the highest fees to a property manager. It's probably going to be a full 10% with a full month to place a tenant. But as you get up to 4 or 5 units, that percentage comes down on what property managers are going to want, and they might lower their tenant placement fees. I've got property managers reaching out to me now that will do 6% and a $300 flat rate fee for placing a tenant. So someday I'm probably going to have a property manager.
But not today.
So you've only been doing this for 5.5 years. You have 15,000, and you said in cash flow. Is that cash flow profit every month, or okay? Yep. By most people's definitions, that is financial freedom. If you can go back to day one, so 5.5 years ago, is there anything you would do very differently?
If I could go back in time right now, 2 things. One is mindset of limiting belief. I remember when I first started, I saw all these gurus and mentors, and I was like, man, if I could have like just 10 units in my life, I'll be set, right? And I would go back in time now and just slap Calvin right in the face and be like, just like wake up, right? Like, think bigger. Don't limit yourself, right? And that's probably because I thought that was my self-worth at that time, right? And 2 was, and I love this quote, is, hey, if you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, you go together, right? And back to the whole team thing, like it is a team thing, right? So if I could surround myself with as many people that were doing this as possible and then find as many mentors and try to add value to them, man, in 5.5 years, I mean, yeah, pretty short time. But like, I feel like we could have even done it faster because there were a lot of learning lessons. We made a lot of mistakes, but we had the right people in place. We had the right community that we can grow with. Man, that would have been something special.
Yeah, and I think you'll learn a lot from those mistakes. And a lot of people say I would go back and skip my mistakes, but then you wouldn't know not to make them now. I love the quote where you said, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. I'm actually a pirate minister, as you can see in this video right here. And one of the things I say to the couple as I'm helping them start their life together is that quote. If I can go back and smack myself like you talked about at the 10-year ago mark when I was starting my investing, I would say, treat it like a business from day one. I moved into an apartment to rent out my house because I didn't have a good debt to income ratio. I had $89,000 in bad debt, was making $17 an hour, single parent, 3 kids, didn't look good. So I moved into an apartment to figure out if I could handle renting out my house while working full-time while raising my kids. But what that did is it helped me when I was living in the apartment. The rental income from the house after some time was on my tax returns, which helped me offset my debt to income ratio, which led to me being able to invest. But in that first year, I didn't feel like I was a landlord because I was testing the waters of real estate. So I rented to a friend because I didn't think I could trust a stranger. I didn't do a lease. I did a handshake because it wasn't a business. Worst investing year of my life. Was so bad I tried to quit. I tried to give the house away. Luckily, in around the 2010 era, my house was underwater on the mortgage and I couldn't even give it away. So I was stuck with it, forced to learn because I realized I hadn't educated myself. I went online, found BiggerPockets, read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and some real estate books. I listened to them and realized I developed business systems. This became really easy. So I learned from those mistakes. I'm glad they happened because I ended up reaching financial freedom in less than 10 years. But had I started at like a business from day one, if anybody listening, that's my biggest advice is how would you run this when you're successful? Do it that way from day one. Don't think, when I'm finally successful, then I'll get some systems in place. Can you tell me a little bit about your mastermind group? And if I was looking to join one, how would I do that?
Yeah. So, our mastermind group is, very much like our conversation today. Like, I understand, hey, like, you want to go, you want people around you because you are the 5 people you surround yourself with, right? So how we view things and even why we even started, our mastermind group is called Zen Coast University. But when we had hit financial freedom, right, the choice to work or not, right, and do what we want with who we want when we want, we kind of hit this inflection point. And there's a really good book called The Second Mountain, where the first mountain is that first full fulfillment, right? Now we're not just talking about financial, right? It helps a lot, but it's also about your family, your friends, your fitness, your faith, and for me, your future big, hairy, audacious goal. So when we hit that, Jenny, my fiance, and I were at this inflection point of, all right, well, first off was, and I've heard people say this all the time, is like, when you hit your goals, your someday goals, you always think the clouds will part, sunshine will come down, the angels will take you up, and everything will be, perfect, right? That didn't happen, right? The next day happened, nothing changed, right? but it was really cool to feel. But, we got to a point where what could we do? What was a bigger impact that we can make on this world, right? And we kind of went around thinking about what else, people did, start nonprofits, hand out soup at the kitchen. None of that stuff, that all felt like check boxes to me, right? What we did look at is what's been our superpower so far, right? And we're like, hey, real estate's been okay to us. Why don't we try to teach people that so that they can live a more abundant life, right? And if we can teach them how to live a more abundant life, maybe they can make an impact on their communities, their families, pass that down generational, or pass that in their church communities or wherever communities they're a part of. And that will be that compound effect, right? I'm not talking Elon Musk levels of impacts, but the impact that we can make in our abilities. That's where the premise of Zen Coast Universities came from. We always say it's about passive income for passive impact, right? Creating passive income to help you create passive impact. Because when you talk to most people, it's like, hey, I want to do all these really great things. And I'm so blessed because throughout my journey, I've been able to meet so many cool students, right? And every single one of them has a really deep down why, a purpose, right? But the bottleneck is, hey, I got no time to do it. I'm stuck feeding my family. I got to do all this stuff before I can get there. So that's our mission, is to help them get to that point. Surround themselves with, one, like-minded individuals that can give them accountability and push them in the right direction. Two is get coaching, which is, again, that's the mindset piece in my mind, of removing mental roadblocks. So I used to worry about slapping old Calvin in the face about thinking that was too small. That's exactly what we do. Hey, let's think big and let's think of how we can get there. And it can actually give you a roadmap to show you how feasible it may be.
That's awesome. It's kind of the evolution that a lot of investors take. And I learned this in the beginning. I normally say don't pay for training. I went to a lot of the Rich Dad Poor Dad free seminars, and they all upsell you on come to our 4-hour paid seminar, come to our 3-day weekend. And they, if it's a couple $100 and you learn a lot of content in a short period of time, great. But if it's $12,000, you're better off going out, throwing $12,000 at a terrible property and losing it all. That what you'll learn from that experience is better than what you would get out of a course, in my opinion, most of the time. But every time I went to one of the Rich Dad seminars, they start off with the same story. They start asking the audience, if you had some passive income, what would you do? Most people say more passive income. And they say, okay, so you've reached financial freedom, what would you do? Well, I would quit work. I would have a longer vacation. I would have the nicer truck, whatever. So they finally get through to where you're making so much passive income, you have everything that you would want. Eventually, the audience realizes once you have all of your needs met, you can help people. The more passive income you create, the more financially free you are, the more people you can help. So people that start mastermind groups, or I started a nonprofit that focuses on job placement assistance, I wouldn't be able to do that if I was completely reliant on my job for income.
Yep.
But freeing up your time by not having to sell your life 1 hour at a time lets people choose things like go check a box and hand out food in a food shelter, start a nonprofit. Getting into a mastermind group, and I'm in a few, and some of the things that I take away from those groups, I don't think I ever would have found in a book. I don't think I would have ever had them come up in a conversation. But when you have successful people trying to share their successes, specifically targeted at helping people learn them, you never know what you're going to walk away with. If people wanted to, how could they get a hold of you?
Yeah, so you can find us on Facebook and Instagram. So Instagram is just, my name is CalvinChin91. Facebook group, which is Zen Coast University, or at our website, which is zencoastuniversity.com.
Okay, awesome. Well, Calvin, I really want to thank you for taking your time to come on here today. Hopefully we helped some people.
I appreciate the time. Thanks for having me.
Until my next video, thanks for coming to my Dion Talk.
We're sorry, the number you have dialed is not in service at this time.